evening and welcome to TVB Pearl's coverage of the U.S. presidential inauguration. History of the U.S. Constitution specifies that the president be inaugurated at noon on January 20th every 4 years. But because that date falls on Sunday this year, President Barack Obama took the official oath of office yesterday inside the White House at a low-key ceremony. However, his grand public ceremony will be held on the steps of the U.S. Capitol in about an hour's time. And of course, we will go live to that event so that you can witness all the sights and sounds. Clashes between students and police led to several arrests, and 11 demonstrators and 2 police officers were injured. Police did everything they could to keep the peace over those protesting against the possibility of paying a college tuition 3 times the amount that they're used to. Thousands of students took to the streets across Britain. In particular, they feel betrayed by the Liberal Democrat Party, which campaigned on a promise to abolish tuition fees, then abandoned it after joining the coalition government. If passed, the education proposal will see students charge up to the equivalent of $14,500 US a year. Britain has launched a major criminal investigation into who was behind an attack on Prince Charles and his wife Camilla. The couple were briefly surrounded by angry demonstrators in London on Thursday after lawmakers approved a move to sharply increase university tuition fees. London police thought the knockdown, drag-out protesting by thousands of angry demonstrators was the worst of their woes. Not so, because today they are answering to the worst security failure in England in the past decade. A report released in Britain yesterday reveals missed opportunities to prosecute the late entertainer Jimmy Savile for sex crimes because authorities didn't take the allegations seriously. The investigation describes Savile as a major sex predator who used his celebrity status to commit the offenses. Hospital bed patients, starstruck teenagers, students at a school for troubled girls, and autograph hunters. All the victims who made up the long list of mainly children who were sexually abused by the late entertainer Jimmy Savile. Radiation contamination continues to spread in Japan. Radiation levels higher than normal have been detected in 12 prefectures and Tokyo, or 1/3 of all the country's administrative regions. The radiation scare has triggered a run on bottled water. And today, 3 workers at the troubled Fukushima nuclear power plant were contaminated with radiation. 2 of them were hospitalized with severe injuries. Overcoming what has become the world's costliest natural disaster has taken a back seat to the radiation scare in one of the world's largest cities. In addition to Tokyo's contaminated water, 3 other water treatment plants in Saitama, Ibaraki, and Chiba tested positive for unsafe levels of radioactive contamination. In a serious health warning made public today, the World Health Organization's Cancer Agency announced that diesel engine fumes can cause lung cancer. Now, based on compelling scientific evidence, the experts now urge people worldwide to reduce their exposure to diesel fumes as much as possible. Breathing in the exhaust fumes from diesel vehicles is now ranked as important a health threat as breathing in secondhand smoke. 221 million Gmail users worldwide are in for a rude awakening. This after Google announced today it suffered an attack at the hands of hackers in China who breached their system for over a year. China and the U.S. are also at loggerheads over allegations that Beijing hacked into Google accounts. While the Obama administration has the FBI investigating China for the breach, Beijing has gone on the defensive by denying any connection to the hacking. Italy's bogus pilot was not as slick as the infamous Frank Abagnale Jr., who back in the 1960s made a living conning his way onto countless flights posing as a commercial pilot. But one could guess today's arrest of a 32-year-old Italian man is the carbon copy of the same con artist featured in the Hollywood film and book Catch Me If You Can. Police caught up with the pilot poser at a check-in area of Turin Airport.
In other news, a passenger plane slammed into the ground and caught fire while trying to land on a foggy night in northwestern Russia, killing at least 44 people on board. A witness to that crash says he and his father saved several passengers before the plane burst into flames.
It was just before midnight Monday when the Tupolev 134 with 52 people on board crashed on a highway.
A weakened but still dangerous Hurricane Irene has ripped through cities up and down the east coast of the United States, killing at least 9 people. The storm also knocked out power to 3 million homes, and it has now made its second landfall in New Jersey after hitting North Carolina earlier. With a path of destruction that spans 800 kilometers, Irene is now threatening 65 million people, especially those in New York City, where a 1-meter storm surge is affecting the New York harbor. Over to the United States, where the standoff continues over raising the country's debt limit before the August 2nd deadline. Senate Democrats have told House Republicans there is no way they will support their latest plan to lift the federal debt limit. What's more, the 11th hour deal is winning no praise from the White House either.
A little tweak here and a little tweak there, and House Republicans turned in an approved plan to prevent the country from defaulting on its debts.
Over to the United States, where it is down to the wire on raising the debt limit ceiling before the federal government starts running out of money on August 2nd. While U.S. lawmakers and the president argue over whose debt plan is better, the International Monetary Fund pleads with Washington to raise its borrowing limit before it damages the entire global economy.
With just 1 week to act before a catastrophic debt default takes effect, the United States inches closer to a credit rating downgrade, and still the bickering continues.
U.S. President Barack Obama has kept his campaign pledge to become the first president since John F. Kennedy to visit Puerto Rico. But while Obama was wooing Hispanic voters by visiting the U.S. Caribbean territory, a serious rival was working the crowds back home on the U.S. mainland. Former ambassador to China, John Huntsman, is the latest Republican to compete for that White House seat.
Out on the campaign trail in Iowa was President Obama, who on day 2 of his Midwest bus tour discovered those vying for his job were nipping at his heels. But the campaign comments turned real ugly when Texas Governor Rick Perry accused Federal Reserve Chief Ben Bernanke of being a traitor to his country.
French President Nicolas Sarkozy was seen hard at work today, hitting the campaign trail with a new game plan aimed at winning over the far-right voters. Analysts say doing so is a must in order to compete for votes from candidates François Hollande and Marine Le Pen.
It was no holds barred for President Nicolas Sarkozy, who spoke boldly about his new plans for re-election.
Over to France now, where French President François Hollande's Socialist Party won a solid majority in yesterday's parliamentary elections. The triumph now gives Hollande the green light to impose higher taxes on the rich, cut the deficit, and promote economic growth.
A new era of change is on the horizon for the people of France now that the socialists have gained control of Parliament.
And finally, Paul McCartney is getting married again. He confirmed the news after proposing marriage to a New York socialite and businesswoman. Ever the romantic, the 68-year-old former Beatle began dating 51-year-old Nancy Cheval in 2007. There was a bit of a twist surrounding the story behind this year's winner of the Eurovision Song Contest held in Azerbaijan. While a pop singer from Sweden may have won the hearts of an international TV audience of 100 million, Azeri authorities were angry with her for criticizing their human rights record.
Singing and performing to the dance hit Euphoria is how Sweden's Loreen chose to wow the masses at the 2012 Eurovision Song Contest. And that's exactly how it went down in the early morning hours of Sunday.
Sudan and South Sudan have reached a key oil agreement. The breakthrough came after U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton visited South Sudan yesterday, urging leaders there and in the north to resolve their disputes over oil and other issues.
As part of an 11-day tour around Africa, Hillary Clinton specifically visited the world's newest nation, South Sudan, to offer U.S. support.
19 states across India have suffered after a massive power outage that's now considered the world's biggest blackout. The power grid network that supplies electricity to half of India's population of 1.2 billion collapsed for 2 straight days, causing chaos across the country.
As one of the fastest growing countries and the third largest economy in Asia, India has long strived to become a superpower. That dream came crashing down over a massive 2-day power outage.
It was an iconic day in the Arab Spring movement as Egypt's former president, Hosni Mubarak, was sentenced to life in prison for the killing of hundreds of protesters during last year's uprising. Put on trial by his very own people in a landmark case, Mubarak showed up to court lying on a hospital bed and wearing sunglasses. His former interior minister was also sentenced to life, while his 2 sons were acquitted of corruption charges.
15 months after Hosni Mubarak was toppled, the fate of Egypt's deposed president was decided in the trial of the century, where he became the first Arab leader to be tried in his own country by his own people.
The 15-year-old girl from Pakistan who was shot in the head by the Taliban for promoting girls' education is making excellent progress. She was released from a hospital in Britain yesterday, where she's received an outpouring of sympathy from people around the world who applaud her case.
It was just 3 months ago when the Taliban in Pakistan tried to assassinate Malala Yousafzai. They shot her in the head for campaigning for girls' education. Imagine writing hundreds of letters to the love of your life during World War II, describing the hardships you endured on 2 fronts, fighting to defend the country you love and fighting to keep your love alive while doing so. For Lloyd Michael, that's what his love letters represented. The same goes for his wife, Marion, whose correspondence were prayers for his safe return. Historical memories carefully tucked away in a steamer trunk until they were stolen in the late 1960s from their home in California.
Our love letters, how anybody could steal our love letters.
But out of the blue, a man called to say he was returning the letters.
He says, I have something of yours. I've got a box of letters, and I'd like to get them to you.
Their letters ended up with a stamp collector who died, and his son then tracked down Lloyd Michael through his military service number. Much like these love letters, the Michaels' love story has stood the test of time. The 2 first met in high school, fell in love, and married in 1942. Soon after, Lloyd joined the Army Air Corps and was shipped out to fight on the front lines, where he served in England, France, and Belgium. At one point, he was stationed near the infamous Omaha Beach, not long after D-Day.
It just brings back all those memories and the tension and the not knowing.
Because the whereabouts of those fighting in World War II was kept secret, hidden in these letters, the couple came up with a system of coordinates. A clever way to dupe military censors to keep Marion informed about her husband's movements in Europe.
It's very emotional for us. Brings back, as she says, some marvelous memories of getting the letters, but hellish times to live through.
But that was history, and now this treasure trove of historic love letters are being kept in a much safer place. This way, the duo can reminisce on those trying times of war, that while spent apart, it was a time that brought them closer together.
If the Lord lives us enough time, we might read them all.
So on this, their 70th wedding anniversary, the return of these wartime love letters is the finest anniversary gift they could ever receive. Sonya Artero, TVB News.
And there is no question about it, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi is not gaining much praise or support in his own country. But ever since becoming an embattled leader, believe it or not, his popularity has soared. On the internet, that is.
Many of his countrymen are engaged in an uprising against him. His regime is coming apart at the seams.
Gaddafi must go now.
And leaders from around the world are condemning him, all of which Colonel Muammar Gaddafi adamantly denies. Although it may not be the popularity he was hoping for, there is no denying he's become a worldwide hit on the World Wide Web.
After the Chilean miners' dramatic rescue earlier this month, President Sebastián Piñera challenged the 33 men to a soccer match. He vowed at that time the winners would be treated to a stay at the presidential palace, while the losers would have to head back down to the mine. It was a bet the miners honored on Monday, but not before being treated to a welcome fit for heroes at Chile's National Palace.
The Chilean miners continued their celebrity tour dedicated to celebrating their freedom after spending 70 days deep inside the bowels of their collapsed mine.
And finally, a story about what it takes to be the world's ugliest dog. Enter Yoda, a 14-year-old Chinese crested and Chihuahua mix. Her tufts of short hair, protruding tongue, and seemingly hairless legs were just enough to earn her that dubious honor at a Northern California fair. And we close with a cool story. There's a town in Northern California in the United States that celebrates the life of a light bulb. It stands to reason when this particular light bulb has been burning since 1901. The 60-watt bulb only runs on 4 watts and cleverly spells the word on when it's in use. The famous light bulb hanging in a fire station. And finally tonight, shoppers in the U.S. state of Florida looking for that perfect gift have to look no more. An ATM that dispenses shiny 24-karat gold bars and coins is the way to go. German company X-Orient Lux has unveiled the gold-to-go machine. It will be fine and dry, cold tonight and tomorrow morning. The temperatures will range from 11 to 17 degrees. Moderate north to northeasterly winds, fresh over offshore waters at first. Tomorrow's API is forecast from medium to high. The maximum UV index forecast for tomorrow will be 5. And here is the latest global weather update.
You're watching KUAM News Extra with Sonya Artero.
And welcome back. At the tender age of 4, a loving mother gave her son a ukulele, and from there, a ukulele virtuoso was born. Now 31 years old, Jake Shimabukuro is known for his lightning-fast fingers that produce the most unique of sounds. Sounds that combine elements of jazz, rock, Hawaiian, and pop. Seeing this ukulele master live in concert is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So to help solidify your decision to ensure that you catch his concert this Friday night at the Marriott Hotel, we've asked our good buddy Jake Shimabukuro to join us once again here on News Extra. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome
I'm excited
back to
be back here in Guam.